Hello, I'm Justin, and today is day 7 of an ongoing project. So I guess since this project is daily, it's been a week, and I certainly don't feel like I've run out of things to talk about, and I feel like the next few days I'd like to talk about the voice in the head or voices in the head. And I'd actually like to start today by asking a question of you, and I'd love for you to comment below. How many of you find yourself talking to yourself? And when you talk to yourself, how many voices are there? And the reason I'm curious about this is that when we record something like this and it is going to go online and there is a prospective audience, I think it's difficult for a speaker who's recording themselves not to imagine this prospective audience. And at the same time, because that audience is, in this case, an active imagination, that audience is also me. And it just so happens I'm also staring right now at a screen on my phone that's actually doing this recording or connected to the recording because the camera is on the same side. And I think that when we speak to someone in front of us, there's still often a matter of talking to ourselves when we are talking to someone else. And I think this is true even if we're listening to the other person. I think that we're carrying each other in our heads. And I think that there's this term of an internal monologue. And I find having an internal monologue is not something I feel like I really have. I interrupt myself too much. I do a lot of self-correction and a lot of self-editing, and it can get in the way of speaking. There is a kind of editing based on an audience, and I often long to get past that editing. And there are a number of different models where we have different voices talking inside of our heads. Sometimes in cartoons, we have a devil and an angel on our shoulders, and that's like one kind of dichotomy. And that's just two sort of voices talking to the speaker or the doer. But one of the kinds of ideas of voices in our heads that I want to leave off with today comes back to a time when I was teaching the Communist Manifesto to a group of first-year students. And I don't really consider myself a communist, but I found it really interesting to jump into these ideas. And to be honest, until I had to teach it in class, I had not read the Communist Manifesto. It's pretty short. And there's some really interesting turns of phrase at the very least. But I remember trying to explain to some first years, like, how can we understand the proletariat and the bourgeoisie or the capitalist? And I felt like just talking about working class versus, the middle management kind of class, or the gentried class. I didn't think that would connect so well to these students. So instead, I just wanted to talk about a boss and a worker. And I also had to talk about alienation. And I talked about how I can very clearly identify a boss in my head and a worker. And the boss tells the worker what to do. And the worker inside my head generally doesn't like the boss. What the boss asks the worker to do often alienates the worker. The worker actually would rather play all day. And actually, I think that the worker can be a lot of fun. And the manager never really seemed like a lot of fun in my head. But that alienation seemed to come down to a feeling like one part of myself was exploiting another part of myself. And I know that I would side with the worker. And it seemed like probably a lot of students felt the same way. If you procrastinate doing papers like a lot of us do, I think you can relate to what a drag the manager in our head can be. But as I've gotten older, and to be honest, as I've gone through maybe a year of therapy, I am looking at the figure of the manager as well as the worker in my head. And I'm kind of grateful for the manager, because probably without the manager, I would not be posting these videos every day. And my notion of you folks out there in my audience, I wonder to what degree you are connected to that management side of my brain, and what side is a worker, and maybe there is just the consumer. But I'm pretty sure that I am a factory of ideas, and raw material is constantly being transformed and fashioned into something else. Thanks for listening, and perhaps I'll see you tomorrow. Please subscribe and like.